time in Turkey?
It's my second time in Turkey.
I never been. So I've been to close to a dozen countries. I want to hit 50 because that's just a nice round number that sounds
Yep,
nice
yep.
to me. I just want to do
hmm
50 countries, but Turkey is definitely on the list. Istanbul?
Istanbul, man. Istanbul. I was in a place called Kadıköy,
I heard
and
of it.
Kadıköy is like the it place if you want to hang out. The bars, the clubs,
So why
the
Turkey?
atmosphere.
What made you hit Turkey?
Well, so I went to Turkey actually to get some dental work done. And I tell people, man, explore your options. You're talking about probably the number one dental tourism place in the world.
Wow.
Like literally, like legitimately. And it's not just the price neither. It's the quality of work that they do.
Okay.
So, I started this last year and we was able to cap everything off this last trip, man. So it kind of worked itself out.
Is it because you plan on being on a lot of video, a lot of stages?
Well, listen, I'm planning on being on stages. I have been on stages,
Yeah.
and it was something that I just wanted to do. I think that anybody that, if you ever consider yourself a professional and this is what you want to do, you're gonna put yourself out there. I would hate for the message to get lost because of the aesthetics of my teeth.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in addition to that, it was for health reasons as well.
Okay.
So it's like it had something things that had to get done, and I'm retired from the job, man. I got great health benefits. That's not
Yes.
even a question at all.
Yeah.
But there's things that the benefits did not stretch into, so therefore I had to look for some other avenues, and it's
S-
probably one of the best decisions I've ever made.
So I know that our medical's always been phenomenal, but our
hmm
dental was lacking. It was lacking for a long time.
Well, definitely for detectives. I mean, because we don't have, especially NYPD, we don't have the biggest union. So
Hmm.
the joke was always get your dental work before you get promoted. so,
Oh, that's
so
really funny.
that was the joke back in the day. It was like, listen, if you need anything done, get it done now before you get promoted to detective. Because at that time, it wasn't as robust. They have changed it now. It's a lot better now than it was back then. But the dental actually works more for my daughter, if anything.
Okay.
But for me, it started out me going there for medical tourism. Now I have friends in the region now. So when I went
Yeah,
back, I'm visiting friends. I'm at people's homes. I'm
that's
hanging
cool.
out.
That's
Like,
really cool.
so this is a place I could possibly see myself like living for like 2 months out the year. Nothing crazy, but it turned into that. And I didn't realize like my whole world has changed going to Istanbul. It's just like
I
something I didn't
tell
do before.
everyone you have to travel, you have to get out of the US because your experiences outside of the country. It's like it opens up your mind to the
Definitely.
possibilities. It's a big, big world. And the
It's a
two places that I went that I felt like I could live there was Colombia. Um, so many beautiful brown people, and
mhm.
it was just a beautiful country. I was in Cartagena and Barranquilla,
Cartagena.
and,
Yes, yes.
yeah, and also Tokyo. Not a lot of brown people in Tokyo.
No, no, listen. I think the term is gauging or something like that, meaning you're an outsider. And listen, they have their way of life there, which you have to respect. You can't
Yes,
come there like a
yes,
bull in a china shop and
yes.
expect for people to acquiesce to an American lifestyle. It doesn't work that way. I'm an ultra polite person, but I'm extremely polite when I'm abroad.
So you've been to both of those countries that I just mentioned.
No, I've been to as far as anywhere in South America. It was Costa Rica.
Okay.
And the Caribbean, it was definitely Dominican Republic as well as
Yeah.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Yeah.
My it's funny. One of my nephews, he been to Colombia and he
Yeah.
loves it. My old
Yo.
partner's Colombian, and I heard, I know,
Yo,
I heard.
I'm telling, look, I got my girl upstairs, but we could take like 4 or 5 guys and just go over there and just like just be out eating at the restaurants and just having a good time and just communing. Like I got this one of my brothers who was on the wrestling team back in the day. He took a trip to Colombia and I was like, oh, we got to go together. I've been trying to talk to one of my he's another fellow detective, well, another one of my brothers. I've been trying to talk him into it. I was like, listen, just tell your wife it's for the community. It's for the, and he's like, she ain't gonna go for it. She ain't gonna go for it.
Yeah, you know what happened, right? So what happened is that now everything's kind of out in the open now. on why men go to these places. I mean, that's just what it is. It's
Yeah.
like, and it kind of put a damper on for those that want to go somewhere. Those that I have friends of mine who are extremely happily married.
Yeah.
But let's be very clear. You go to Colombia, it's beautiful women there.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Everywhere. I don't
Everywhere. Yeah.
care. It's just same with Dominican. I mean, I'm going back. I was in Dominican Republic 20 years ago
Yeah.
before this thing of the internet where people really catching on to it, that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
so, but I also tell guys, listen, that shouldn't be the only mode of travel, reason for
Yes.
travel. When
Yes.
I went to Turkey, that wasn't it at all. I mean, and there's beautiful women there as well.
I know. I
So
got to tell you something. In high school, I had a Turkish girlfriend. Her name was Aisha. Now, Aisha didn't wear deodorant. So sometimes, if you're hearing this, Aisha, I'm sorry, but she didn't wear deodorant back in the day. It was just like part of her religion. Strict Muslim, but she was a very, very pretty girl. And she reached out to me on Facebook. She's married.
wow.
Yeah, she was reached out. She was married at the time. She was just saying hello, and I was just like, "Hey, how are you?" I kept it very, very cordial. Very, very pretty girl, and I always wanted to go to Turkey. I love women all around the world, international, international.
Listen, I can say I'm a single guy, so I can speak
Good
for
for
this.
you.
Yes and no, right? but
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
know what? But I tell you, anybody, you know what? It that's not the main motivation to go out. It's not that type of party. You actually have to talk to people, meet
yes,
people, but it's not hard either. I mean, like
yeah,
you come there. It's not because you're an American either. Most people out there, for what I've witnessed and who I've been connected to, it's all about character.
yeah.
After
That's
people
cool.
speak to you, they see that you're a good person. They can kind of feel it. And also, for whatever reason, like by osmosis, I always connect with other good people. My friend Alfred out there in Turkey, he's a polyglot. He speaks 6+ different languages.
That's
He
so
was
cool.
he went to Oxford. I met him at like a mixer out there, and we've been friends ever since. So like, this is not something. It went past medical tourism. Now it's I'm gonna go out there to see my friend Alfred. I'm gonna bring my daughter out there with me. I want her to see it as well, see the world as well.
Yeah, you speak any
It's
other
like,
languages?
no, I wish I did, man. You know what? I keep saying every year, I keep saying, you know what? I have to pick up something. I was talking to my friend Alfred about this. He said, Eric, you got to pick up another language. You got to pick up at least one. He said, I'm not saying that you speak 5, but you got to pick
Spanish
up
is
at
the
least one.
easiest to start with. Duolingo, just 10 minutes a day, you could learn a decent amount of vocabulary,
Mhm.
and then that gives you the base. Like I feel like once you know the vocabulary, then you start actually having conversations with people, and you could just tell them, could you just say that a little bit slower for me, or repeat it for me, and they're more than happy to because you're trying.
Well, and I'm also at a point in my life now to where I'm looking to live abroad. It doesn't have to be 6 months or a year, but a quarter out the year. And I encourage other guys to do it as well. I mean, it really depend upon your situation. Also it depends. Hey, if I'm in a serious relationship at the time, I'm married. But my main thing now is my daughter. So
Yeah,
within next 8 to 10 years, I'm 52, 53 years old. My daughter's 18, 19 years old, whether she's in school, she's doing her thing. I can afford to say, hey, you know what? I'm pumpkin. I'm going to be in Istanbul at the condo for 3 months out for the next 2 months. You want to come kick it? Here's a plane ticket. Come see dad, vice versa. And that's where I'm at right now with it. I mean, I want to be a world citizen. I'm a big
and
patriot too. So
me,
that's
me
the reason
too,
I'm
me
with that.
too.
I love America. I'm America first. And I love that flag that you got in the back there as
Thank you.
well. So, but at the same time, I also think that we should exercise
Yes,
the use of other places, so that way you're not so closed-minded, and also
yes.
you realize there's a bigger world out there for you to explore, to do all these other things that people are scared to do because of some type of mixed messaging or negative messaging, rather. And I totally ignore those things, and I'm a little adventurous by nature. Explains what I did in my career, and
What
go from there.
what unit did you finish off in? Was it Taru or was something else?
So I finished off in the legendary Technical Assistance Response Unit, also known as TARU. Um,
Technical Assistance Response Unit, and
yes.
what was their responsibility primarily?
So what people don't know is that TARU has a variety of different levels. It's like 7 different units in one. So when you first come in, you're in a unit. You're in pretty much in a division called Response. And response is when you're responding to the ongoing calls of detectives. For instance, if a detective has a rape case, they're going to call you out so you can go out to extract the video data. In addition to that, we also did hostage negotiations.
Wow.
So we assisted the negotiator. So if you ever saw the movie, the best way to describe it, part of that job is you ever saw the movie Inside Man with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
You remember when they was in the truck and they were
Yes.
talking it? So I was the guy, I was the tech geek in the truck that's hitting all these switches so we could try to see inside this bank.
Ah, that's cool.
And so therefore we had a refrigerator inside of it, a stationary where people could work at. So there'll be laptops there that are connected to the NYPD system, so we could run names, we could run the building. And basically, the job of the negotiator is to not look at any of the screens that I have up. And when I was lecturing, I was always asked, why is it important for the negotiator to not look at the screens while we're having this negotiation with this said perp that's inside this house? And a lot of people would get it wrong. And I would say no, because what you're doing is you're breaking the lines of trust. You're
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to know what's going on inside. You're not supposed to see what's going on inside it. You're supposed to be only talking to the person. It's supposed to only be audio. So at the time, I was working with the legendary Jack Cambria on a lot of these big scenes. And Jack Cambria would say, Eric, I need you to turn off that screen. Hey, you, tell the negotiator, turn over this way, look that way. Meanwhile, we're looking at the screen because we have a throw phone inside of there. And once they pick up that throw phone, I can activate 6 or 7 different cameras and look at it from the truck.
That's really
So,
cool.
but it was cool, but it was very like high pressure because people
Yes.
expected for you to perform.
Yes. How many
So
years were you in that unit?
I was in there for 5 years.
Oh man, he's so lucky. I want to finish. I wanted to finish my career out in our equivalent on my job is electronics investigations unit, and they go and pull video for homicide
Mm-hmm.
and other units. But it's very difficult to get there without a phone, without making the phone ring. You know, without a crane, a hook, something.
Listen, you know what I tell people all the time, Eric, you were lucky. I said, listen, I had to go through something extremely traumatic. Let's be very clear. At the age of 27 years old, I had to go through something extremely traumatic to get here. In addition to that, you also have to be a good fit as well.
Yes,
Not everybody's a good fit for Tyro. And because a lot of people who was also hurt in the line of duty who asked for it, they didn't get it. And it's primarily is because if you are the fit. It just so happens I knew someone that would work there. But then in addition to that, though, is because of the attitude, what they saw from me. And then next thing you know, it kind of just worked itself out. And I took it a step ahead to where I was able to create something outside of that after I left, which we could get into later on.
let's
But
talk
it
about let's
definitely,
talk about your injury because you are such an upbeat person. Like
thank you,
I,
thank
I
you,
love I love connecting with people like you. Like
thank you,
we
thank you.
are we are spiritual brothers, spiritual animals, the same spirit.
Definitely,
Not only do we have that servant heart, but we didn't let the job affect who we are as a person,
definitely,
right? Like
definitely.
we're still upright, we're still smiling, still living life, enjoying. Like we're not walking around saying everything sucks, everybody sucks, the job is dead. We're not walking around saying that, right? We know a lot of people that are, but you can still laugh, you can still smile, but you did go through a very uh, wild. I'll let you tell the story, but take us back. What happened?
So, January, no, actually July 14th, 2009. And it's crazy because that week I was just trying to coast that week because I'm going on vacation as of Saturday. Like
Uh huh.
Friday's my last day. Saturday I'm on vacation. I'm going to hang out, chill out. I'm tired. At this time, I had 9 months in narcotics. Back then, we called it Organized Crime Control Bureau, the
OCB.
legendary name OCCB. They don't call
Yeah.
it that anymore for
Yeah.
whatever the reason now. So I'm beat, man. I'm beat because when you go through when you to become a detective in NYPD, you have to show proficiency for 18 months. And within that 18 months, they can send you back at any time. They can send you back to your command at any time and stop your detective track. So at this time, I'm tired. They work the hell out of you. because they know they can work the hell out of you because they know that you're chasing the gold shield.
Uh-huh.
So this is like their time to really like get their shit off. Pardon my
Uh-huh.
French, pardon me the curse.
It's all
This
right.
this is their time to to really get their rocks off with you. So you're going through a gauntlet, and I'm young. I'm 20, 26, 27 years old at the time. So I'm in a car with my partner Mitch, at the time, and we're the P van that day. I did mostly the P van. I like the money. I like to deal with the prisoners, and I was guaranteed some money at the end of the night doing the P
Yes.
van.
Yes.
So I'm doing the P van, and we get called to Avenue U and East 34th Street, which is probably one of the nicest places I ever worked in Brooklyn. I was a housing cop in Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene, and so it was like night and day for me.
Salute you, sir. Salute.
We'll talk more about that later on as well.
Yeah.
So we get to this scene, and they had a guy handcuffed. I go through my normal, rigmarole, the search, taking down the pedigree information, putting all the contents in a yellow envelope. And at this point, we put them away in our P van, and we're standing on the corner, having a fireside chat about the next set. I'm with the full team. Next thing you know, you hear a big clash behind me. What I did not know was a 2-car accident that occurred. My partner Florin at the time, he yells out car. And when he yelled out car, the only thing I could do was look back, and I noticed that a car was barreling down on me. When the car got closer, the only thing that I can do is jump. And now, mind you, I'm in front of somebody's house. When I jumped, the car hit me, threw me over into somebody's front lawn. So now at this point, I'm thinking like this some form of ambush. I'm like, not this guy. Like really, I'm thinking it's game on now. I went for my gun. My gun is gone. I had a retention holster back at that time, just to show you how hard the impact was that my gun came flying out of a retention holster. And I thought the car was actually going to come through the gate at that moment. So I rolled over. I'm still in the game. Not mind you, I didn't even look down yet. But then my partner at the time, Ryan, who was the whitest guy you could ever work with. But this time he looked really white. His face just dropped. And I got really nervous. I'm like, and he kind of whispered it. He said, Eric, don't look down. But when I looked down, my foot was in shreds.
Oh my God.
You're talking about my toes, and I have to be as graphic as I can because I want people to really understand exactly how this thing was for me. So I'm talking about my toes were hanging, bone protruding through the skin. Later on, we had a conversation about it. My foot was degloved. That means it was devoid of skin.
Wow.
And at this point, it was I just yelled out, but then something told me to calm down because at this point in time, I'm afraid I'm going to bleed out. My partner, Jimmy Williams, what he did was he took his belt off and he did a tourniquet. And he said, Eric, we got to get you the fuck out of here. And we're waiting on the ambulance. And this is at 2:35 in the afternoon, summertime, Brooklyn South. So there's some traffic here.
Yeah.
We had 2 female cops came from the 6th Street precinct. They threw me in the back of the police car. I'm sitting between my partner's legs. And they shutting all the streets down all the way to Kings County Hospital. And for those who know, Kings County Hospital, man, you can walk in there with 10 bullets and walk out the next day. It's the best trauma hospital, one of the best in the city, bar none. And
that's why the homicide rate. That's also why the homicide rate has gone so down. I heard because they're saving so many people from things that used to die from.
They're phenomenal. I mean, you want to go to Kings County. I don't care who you are. You want to go to Kings County if you're in some serious trouble, especially the type of trouble that I was in. And as we're going through this, I'm sitting between my partner's legs, and the only thing I could muster to say was, and I have to be very frank, part of my French, what the fuck am I going to do now? And he's like, Eric, what are you talking about? He's like, Eric, just stay up. I'm like, no, what the fuck am I going to do now? I'm thinking, I'm already ahead of it. I'm thinking about my career. I'm thinking about where I came from, how I got to this point. And I'm like, I'm more scared of that. Never mind what's going on with my leg. It's like, what am I going to do now? And when I showed up to the hospital that day, they got me through. They cut everything over, take my vest, cut my jeans, and I had a really candid conversation with the surgeon. And what he did was he took a metal instrument and he rubbed it up and down what was left of my foot. And he asked me, "Can I feel it?" And I lied to him. And I said, "Yes, sir, I can feel it." And he said, "I'm going to try it again, Eric. Can you feel this?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can." He says, "No, you can't." He says, "Eric," he says, "what happened is that you lost what is called proprioception in your left foot. You're 27 years old. You have a lot of living to do. But the best thing to do would be to amputate your lower left leg." Mind blown. Mind blown. Like the world has stopped hearing that. Now, instinctively, I knew that. Just looking at trauma throughout the years, I knew the final result. That's why I lied to him. The only thing I could do at that time was like this. I just like just cried. And then he said, "Well, is there anybody you want to call?" I says, "Well, you know what? I want to call my parents." And then I says, "You know what? No, do what you need to do." I wake up probably like 8 to 9 hours later, and now I'm in a whole new lifestyle, which resulted in me being a low below the knee amputee.
I was gonna ask, how high did they go? Did they go below the calf or above the calf?
It works out this way. This is the terminology. It's the AK, which means above the knee, and it's the BK, which is below the knee. And the reason why they have to go either way, they don't just like do like, oh, this cut from the ankle down, is because they look to fit you in a prosthetic.
Ah,
So
okay.
they have to cut enough to where they can get a good fit. Now, if my whole leg got damaged, that's something else. It's a whole other issue. But then there's prosthetics for that as well. That's a whole different type of fit. The reason why I walk the way I walk, if you meet me in person, like you wouldn't know it. Most people don't know I'm an amputee to the summertime because I wear shorts.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
or if I'm in a gym, so it's always a shock factor, primarily because of what people think a handicapped person is supposed to look like. I don't dress like I'm handicapped. I don't look disheveled, quote unquote. And this is the perception of people who are handicapped. They have a certain look. They don't look as normal as me.
I have a question
Yes.
about the handicap sticker, right?
Yes.
Have you ever pulled up to a grocery store, parked in a handicap spot, hung up your tag, and then walked out of your car looking normal, and then
All this, yeah,
and then you got
uh,
funny looks, and you got funny
big
looks?
time, big time, and it's hilarious too. It's like what is this guy like? And I get it because our perception on what handicap is supposed to look like. You're supposed to look like you're all over the place. You're
Right.
unkept.
Shaking. You're supposed to be
You're
shaking.
supposed to be shaking. You're supposed to really be an invalid. And
Yes.
for me, so when you meet me or when I go somewhere or I'm invited to speak somewhere, and then here I am, I'm telling you this story that I lost my leg. And people are like, "Well, I just saw you walk around here for the last 20, 30 minutes. You look like you could just jump up and run around," which I could do all that stuff. But yet I still have my own small challenges. It's just that I work extremely hard to overcome those so I can live a normal, active lifestyle the way I've been doing now for the last 15 years, which has been now since my accident.
God bless you, brother. How
Thank you,
long
man.
was the
Thank you.
recovery in the PT? I know it's still ongoing forever, but how long was it initially?
So initially, it was like for the first 6 or 7, 8 months, because
Wow.
I was out for a whole year. So I was out for a whole year, so I had the real time to really like delve into it. I was walking probably like by month 3,
Wow.
like, and I'm talking about unassisted walking.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I had an aha moment in my house one day because it hurt like hell. Just like the shaping of the leg to get inside the prosthetic, and the prosthetic squeezing your leg, and it's still tender. Like I can't remember the pain now. I just knew it really hurt. I mean, like
Uh-huh.
it hurt like hell, like to the point where I rejected it. And I never forget my friend Rashid, who's still on the job now, who's also a below the knee amputee as well. He came to visit me. And he ran up my steps. And I just looked like, "How the hell you do that, man?" He's like, "Eric, you could do it too, but get your ass off the couch, click in, we're going for a walk."
Good for him.
And that's what kind of like prompted me to like, and what I would do is I had 2 crutches at the time. So I would take one crutch and I would throw it out front, walk, get that crutch, take the other one. And I repeated that. Two became one became none. And then one day I just got up to get a glass of water in my house, poured the water, sat back down on the couch. And I was like, no pain. From that point on, I was gone. I'm in Cancun. I'm here. I'm there. Like the doors just opened up for me. And at that point, I said, "Oh, okay, I can do this." but I'm gonna do it this way. And also, I was around a lot of high performing people. The place that I went to get my prosthetics from is called Step Ahead Prosthetics. They're probably one of the best in the world. Owned by Eric Schaefer. And he says, listen, you're going to learn stuff from me, but you're really going to learn it from other amputees being here. So speak to people, talk to them. Don't be shy because you're going to learn a lot from them. So I got to meet people like Amy Winters, Paralympic, Olympian, who won 2 ESPY awards. LeBron James wins ESPY awards. She won 2 of them. Yeah. So you're around people doing the Ironman competitions.
High level athletes.
High level athletes, high level, but most importantly, the mindset. There was somewhere else. And I said, hey, I don't know if I'm able to do the Ironman, but if I could get a third of what this guy got or what Amy has, running in the desert, Death Valley, 110-mile race. She said, Eric, I had to stop by mile 75 because the pin in my prosthetic overheated and it burned my stump. And I was pissed. I had to stop the race. These are the type of people that I'm talking to. So by osmosis, it just kind of and I was already a high performing person, but then I got to meet other people within my genre, and it really kind of set the emotions off as far as the rest of my life, as far as how I attack things going forward.
Did you listen to David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me?
I'm a big David Goggins fan.
I had a feeling.
But I'm also realistic.
Yes.
I'm realistic. David Goggins is a outlier. Those guys come once every 50 years.
Yes.
And if you could get a third, you don't need all of it, because I don't know if I can't do that. Is another level of discipline. I wish to achieve that. But if you could get a third of what Goggins is giving out, I mean, it's just it's nothing short of phenomenal, man. So
I'm a big fan also.
Yeah, I mean, he's just phenomenal. I mean, and it's really no. I'm not going to get down on myself, and I always get asked that, Eric, were you ever down on yourself? I said, you know what? Believe it or not, it was a very short time, and the reason why was because I was able to take inventory as far as what I had going on in my life. I made the right moves. If I would have got hurt at any other job, it wouldn't have been like this. Nowhere near it. I had a fellow amputee say, hey, at least you lost your leg at the right job. And I was looking at him what are you talking about? I'm like, what? I'm like, really? What the hell are you talking? I couldn't comprehend it back then.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm like, okay, you know what? He was absolutely correct. And he said, no, Eric, you got a lot going on. And in addition to that, I have to talk about the other side of this as well. So now you get recognized, right? Now you get all this recognition. Now you're the guy. So I was a celebrity. I always tell people I was a celebrity for 10 minutes. Now you have the ear of the police commissioner, chief of department, the rest of the dais, etc. Now people are looking behind your background now. Hey, what kind of guy this is? Because this is what they do. I always tell people the NYPD is a corporation, mask and blue collar work, but it's every big corporate. Yes. And I had a thorough understanding of that at 27 years old. So I knew that these interviews I was going to have with the commissioner, listen, let people see your personality, let them see, because you're never going to get this again.
Yes.
This was the biggest interview of my life.
Yes.
You're never going to get where people are going to be focusing on Eric at this particular time. And I knew that going in. And I was very cognizant of that. So here you have the commissioner that's coming to see me. You have ESPO's coming to see me. And not more than once too. It's not like this, oh, we see you once and that's it. I don't think anybody saw Ray Kelly dressed down. I did. I saw him in a polo and a pair of khaki pants. I never saw him without a suit up to that time. Right. He said, Eric, I came to visit you in the hospital before I went out to dinner with my wife. I told my wife I'm gonna be a little late. I gotta go visit Eric. These are the conversations that I'm having with the commissioner at the time. And I was able just to be myself. And he saw that. And they respected that because these guys are old school. They respect warriors. So, you've been through some stuff. And in addition to that, working at OCCB, that helped out a lot as well because I'm working in a heavy-handed unit where we're responsible for at that time, 75 to 80% of the rest of the job was OCCB. Mm-hmm. I mean, so as the whole unit. So they did the round robin on me. Here you have a young man. I'm from Queens Rich Houses, the third largest housing development in the country, the biggest in New York City, 6 blocks, 96 buildings. Statistically, I'm not even supposed to be here. Most of my friends did some form of jail time. How does this, young man, hail from this area, comes up to, was able to reach the heights of, this type of upper echelon. And then yet, I was also working on my speaking at the time. I was well spoken,
I
I
know
was
you are
charismatic.
so. I wanted to compliment you. Are so articulate,
Thank
and
you. I appreciate
you
that.
are a phenomenal speaker. I would have loved to have sat in one of your classrooms when I was in criminal
Okay.
justice. Like you were the type of professor that I looked up to. I was
Thank
like,
you. Thank
oh
you.
man,
Thank you.
hey, oh, and your age too is shocking. You 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 breezed over it. Black don't crack. Black don't
Oh,
crack.
thank
But
you. I appreciate that. I should have seen it about 2 weeks. Told me how old you were the last time we spoke. I was like, I got to
yeah,
get my stuff
yeah.
together, man. I got to tighten it up. I said, I got to tighten it up. But no, but it was something that I worked on. I wanted to be a better speaker. I was always a C student. It wasn't because I didn't have the intellectual capacity of doing better in school.
At what point did you start doing college credits, and was that before the job or like after the injury?
So no, so this was before the job. So like I had an associate's in liberal arts, and what happened was I graduated from BMCC because I didn't do that well in high school, so I had to take prerequisites and kind of build myself up again. And I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life at the time. First and foremost, being a cop coming from Queensbridge houses was taboo. Let's
Uh
be very clear here.
huh. Uh-huh.
That wasn't. I
Who
did
gave
not
you
like
that?
cops.
Who gave you that idea? Was it a recruiter or was it a family member?
So how it played out was this: I was going to John Jay for forensic science, and now mind you, I didn't become a forensic scientist. I sucked at science, and that way it was what it was at the time. But I'm taking a class. It was actually something with African studies, whatever the case may be. But I met a correction officer named John, and John had 18 years of corrections back in like '03,
Yeah.
and he was paid. He had 2 cars. He had 2 houses in Staten Island. I'm like, man, I want to be like John. Like I'm like, the girls loved him in class. He was just like so chill. He's an older guy, but I love the way he carried himself. And he said, Eric, the NYPD is like recruit. This is after 9/11, so 9/11 was like a major push. At that point, they were losing people because guys were like, hey, I can't make the money that I made that year. I gotta leave now.
Yep.
So the NYPD was hemorrhaging at that time, and they were looking for new people. And they were also very flexible as far as your background's concerned. Now, mind you, I didn't have a speckled background. I'd never been arrested. I didn't have to worry about that. But there was a real push for African American men at the time. And John said, listen, I think you're a smart kid. You're 21 years old. I know you're tired of working at AOL time when the cable at the call center. He said, hey, why don't you take the exam? And back then you had to go through DCAS, mail it out. Nothing like this online thing that everybody has now. It's so simple now. You actually had to go and get a money order, fill
Yes.
out the form, mail it out,
Yes.
all that stuff. But that night I was at the call center, and I took a good look around my surroundings, and I was like, you know what, I want more for myself. And I went to Barnes and Nobles back then, and I bought the book. I paid my $25. And then next thing you know, within 7 to 8 months, I get a letter stating that, hey, congratulations, you passed the test. You're going to be part of the process. And I must have read that thing like 20,000 times, man. I was like, this is it. I think this is going to happen now. And I'm like, okay. And
Once it starts happening, it happens so fast.
it happens really
It's a
fast.
whirlwind. It's a whirlwind.
The sidebar is my best friend was in jail at the time, upstate New York, in Brockton, New York. And I went to go visit him. And I said, hey, man, listen, I passed the police exam.
He was probably happy for you though, right?
I told you we were laughing about it. So I was like, hey, listen, man, I passed the police exam. He said, what? I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to be doing this soon, man. And he's like, are you serious? I said, I'm dead serious. He said, E, do your thing, man. He said, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And you know what? It was like a pinch, like you had to pinch yourself moment because it was almost like when I always tell people, I said, when LeBron James, I think when he won the second title, he had this, I never forget the look he had on his face. And he said, I'm not supposed to be here. And I think that everybody kind of glosses over that moment. He had a real inflection moment. You saw it. And he says, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I've been through this. Like, how did I get here? And that's what it was for me. I'm like, well, shit, like this is like, I'm not supposed to be here. I was one car stop away. I was one this away. I was one that away. And it wasn't because my friends were bad people. is it that we was just products of our environment at the time. We were doing what we were doing, what we saw out in the street. And it was very minor. Some of my friends had to do other things. Why? Because they didn't have the backing at home. I was one of the few friends that actually had a mother and father in the home, which you didn't see as well, which I credit my success to. Having both parents, I was a latchkey kid. So, I watched my father work two jobs. I watched my mom work. So I had a level of, backing at that time. My friends didn't. And that was the difference. But I also credit the fact that I made some really key decisions at 18, 19 that separated me from everybody else. I was off Sundays and Mondays at Time Warner Cable. So I couldn't be up. I wasn't on Fridays and Saturdays, so I couldn't do what? Get in trouble.
Yep.
Fridays and Saturdays, you get in trouble.
Yep.
Sundays and Mondays, nobody's really hanging out. And I worked overnight. I worked 10 at night to 7 in the morning. I went to school full time. I worked full time. So I was like totally like inundated with work and school. And it was good. It was a lot on me at the time, but I also believe that that was God's way of paving my way of not getting in trouble and leading me up to what I'm doing now.
And you also had that mentor tap you on the shoulder and say, "I think this would be a good move
I
for you."
I never saw John again after that. That's the funny
Isn't that
part. Like
wild? Isn't that wild?
and I've been looking for John for a while. I said, you know what? I really got to like delve deep. I said because I would love to thank him, and because it was just like he saw it because we used to talk all the time. And he said, Eric, this is what I'm doing. This is what at that time. I mean, I think top paid NYPD back then was like 54
Yep.
to some 20 to some 21-year-old. I'm like, whoo,
Yep.
I'm like, I could get my own place. I could do it. Like I already started thinking about some of the stuff that I wanted to do, and it was good that John did that. And then in addition to that, I had a brother named Larry Edwards that was from around my way, and Larry Edwards was a sergeant. And then one of the brothers, one of the OGs from the block, so to say, my man High Well, God bless his soul. High went up to him and said, "Hey man, I got a young brother that wants to be a cop. Larry, can you talk to him?" And Larry says, "Well, have you ever been in trouble?" He says, "Nah, he's never been in trouble, but it'd be good if you could sponsor him." Met Larry, he knew my family, and that's also kind of threw me over the loop as well. So I had active NYPD sergeant from my neighborhood that took a chance on me as well.
Man, what a difference that made. Um, two things I never wanted to do was corrections and housing.
My housing stories are wild.
I was in the NYPD Academy in 1998, and I remember thinking, all right, when they asked me what I want to do, my number one choice was transit because I figured, and this was me at 22 years old, thinking everything. I'm a chess player, so I kind of like
I love that.
I think things through a little bit more than other people. So I was thinking if I choose transit, I won't have to be standing on the streets I hate the cold, right? So I won't have to be standing in the streets in the winter. And I think I'll get promoted pretty quickly because they put a lot of people in plain clothes
They do. They do.
very, very quickly. So,
Especially
and
a guy like you.
yeah, that was always my dream to work narco and go into transit. But I left a month before like a month and a half before graduating,
Mhm.
6 weeks I would say, and went back to back academies, back to back. I did a
Oh, that's
full year.
rough.
Yeah, full. You know what though? Being young, I was really really fit, and I had done criminal justice. I had done the city academy, so another one. It was just like, all right, this is just what I do. I work out and I do schoolwork and I get paid for it. So at the time, I was like, yeah, this is rough doing back to back academies, but I wasn't complaining because I actually enjoyed. I enjoyed being in the academy. I used to think I was going to go back to the academy, but when I got on the street, I ended up having so much fun working midnights with my partner and just being active. We had so much fun that like that became a distant thought.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but my first martial arts instructor, Kempo, was a correction officer, and he worked at Rikers. And I knew I didn't want that job. I was like, I do not want to be locked away
Nah.
with, and I'm a small guy too. So, and I know it's not about size, but just the idea of being locked away, I never wanted to do that. And housing sounded like the worst option that I could get, like if I got forced to do it, because the joke was everyone in housing has a second family, and I didn't want to have two
You
families,
go into it.
and and also I didn't want anybody throwing anything on my head. And that was all the stories you ever heard in the city. It was like people having stuff thrown on their head,
so so
buckets
so
of piss, urine. Go
oh
ahead, go ahead, tell your
so
story.
so so let me tell you now. So you know what's funny? I never forget. So you know the day where they tell you, hey, this is where you're gonna go.
What was your
And
choice? What were your choices?
I always wanted to live in Harlem, so I wanted to work in Harlem. I had
Okay.
like this love affair with Harlem for whatever the reason back
Uh huh.
then.
Yep.
So I picked Harlem. I picked PSA like six. I picked Brooklyn was last.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, I
Uh
think I
huh.
picked somewhere in Queens, and then Brooklyn was. I picked Transit,
Because
something like that.
back then, Brooklyn was wilding out.
Brooklyn was.
Brooklyn was
This is before the new Brooklyn. This is before the new
yes,
Brooklyn.
yes.
Like,
I know.
yeah.
Brooklyn was wild.
Brooklyn was wild. So I'm like, nah. And you always heard the academy always. We had Sergeant Mears at the time. They used to always talk about rocking Livonia in the 7-3. That they doing pull ups on the light pole. What are you gonna do when you guys step up to Tyrone? Tyrone tells you to go fuck off. Like so, people are scared. Like now you got some couple of guys. You know, come my counterparts. Some of the white guys from way out in Long Island. They never been. They're like, what? I don't
Yep.
want to go there.
Yep.
So that day, all you heard was people crying
Yep.
because guys in the bathroom crying. I'm going to the 7-3. I'm going to the 7-5. Guys were crying. Guys were
Uh huh.
crying, man. And then I look at my sheet, PSA 3, Police Service Area 3, Bushwick, 25 Central Avenue. I never forget my classmate, my friend Jeff. He goes, listen, Eric, if you drive me home today, I'm going to show you exactly where you're going to be working at. I said, bet. I drove him, man. I drove him home. We're driving through Bed-Stuy. And at this time, I'm talking about like the projects look bigger because they like right next to each other.
Yes.
So you think it's like one big housing development. It's really not.
Yes.
And I'll give you a sidebar. I had debates with people that lived in Brooklyn forever
Uh
that
huh.
would say, no, it's called Fort Greene Housing. I says, no, it's not. It's called Ingersoll and it's called Whitman. I said Whitman houses. They're two different developments. St. Edwards is the divider. Eric, I'm telling you, I said, I know what you're used to saying. Fort Greene, yes, we all say it.
Uh
I'm
huh.
telling you the real. I lock people up there. I'm telling you. So I know Brooklyn. I'm from Queens, but I know Brooklyn better than Queens because of it. So needless to say, we're driving through. Jeff is like, there goes Sumner, Marcy, Tompkins, Louis Armstrong. And I'm like, these places look wild. I said, this looks wild. And you it's like a sink or swim moment, man.
Yes.
When I got there, I never forget. I walked through the front door of the precinct. It's the only time I ever walked through the front door. After that one day, I always went through the back. But I can remember exactly who was at the desk to this day. And everybody I named is going to be retired. Yes, my man McGee, who's a sergeant. He comes in. I said, my name is PPO Grimes. Reporting for duty. And he's like, all right, man, and one of the guys, my man Doogie, God bless his soul, just had his service a couple of last year, and he showed me to my first locker, and then you got to go through the emotions, man. No one called me Grimes for a very long time. It was FNG, meaning the fucking
Uh
new
huh. Uh
guy,
huh.
and
Uh-huh.
you hear all these sideways stuff. You had to take you had to do all the undesirable things, the prisoner transports and central
Yes.
bookings in Brooklyn, BCB back then. Brooklyn Central Bookings back then was a zoo.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
can't go in there timid and excuse me. You had to go in there like knowing what you're doing.
Uh
Even
huh.
if you didn't know what you were doing, you had to walk in
You
there.
had to act like it.
You had to act like it because the detectives would take advantage of you, the prisoners would take advantage of you, the cops in Central Bookings would take advantage of you. So you had to walk in there. So I had a guy write the script for me. Eric, when you walk in, put your gun there. You're gonna sign here. You're gonna do this. I had it all written out.
Uh huh.
So I could go in there and be prepared. And what happens is that once you show somebody what you can do, once you have a couple of good runs, you made a couple of good collars, people say that you're being very consistent. Back then in my precinct, it was about fighting. You had to fight, man. It wasn't none of this. You stand on the sidelines. You had to dance. And if you didn't dance, you was going to dance back at the precinct. It was just that simple. I mean, no one was playing around. You got shunned.
Yeah.
What's going on now, I can't even comprehend it. It's hard for me to watch it.
Yeah.
because back then we lived for that. I mean, so it was a whole different thing. But we wasn't out there beating up the streets either. I was fortunate enough to work with cops that had some time. These were old school housing cops. These guys knew the block. They knew the people there. I saw one kid running. I almost chased him for whatever reason. I don't know. I got grabbed by my collar. Eric, that's Darnell. Yeah, he lives at 542 Marcy, man. Don't worry about it. We'll talk to his aunt later on. Those are the type of guys I worked with that knew the beat. That was a different type of policing back then. You had much more neighborhood policing, community policing
Yes.
at that time. And then we got away from that as it got real numbers driven. But housing, I mean, you talk about second families and girlfriends and all that stuff that's happened. And as they told me, Eric, everybody's cute when they're wearing the uniform. You're just a benefit package. Be
You got to be
careful out
careful.
there.
Yeah, you
You
got to
got to
be
be careful.
careful.
You're young. I'm young. I'm 22. I'm 22,
Yep.
23 years old. Baby face. You know, you have females cursing me out by day. At night, they're whispering, saying, "Hey, come over here. I'm sorry I had to act like that in front of my friends. I think you're cute." All this other stuff. And I mean, it was wild, man. My
And
first 4 years.
it definitely goes to your head too.
Oh, listen, man. I mean, listen, at this point in time, be like that. You're 22, 23 years old. You're walking around. People saying that, they're saying these nice things about you, And listen, flattery gets you everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
so I mean, at that time, you had to like reel that in. But my first 4 years was a big proving ground because I also rose up really quickly as well. I was able, one of my sergeants, my man Mark Winkler, who actually recommended me to go to a unit called Conditions. And it was a uniform unit, but I worked with a lot of older guys. And literally these guys, they put me through the paces.
I remember that. I remember that
Yeah,
unit condition. The
yeah,
condition.
conditions.
Unit.
Yeah, conditions.
Yeah.
There's a conditions team unit in every precinct because
Yeah.
you're adhering to certain small conditions. But what I did learn there, I learned how to do paperwork. I learned my place. As far as you wait your turn. And then I was extremely active. My partner and I at the time, we were young, and we had most of the activity on the team. We kind of carried it in that way.
Yep.
And it worked itself out for me because then it just translated into other things that I did in housing. And by the time I left housing, I was so well rounded. I had such a foundation that when I got to narcotics, it was just like, all right, I'm just
It was easy.
I'm here. Like I'm here. I always said when you go to those type of units like the narcotics, and you have to deal with the biggest egos, like the NBA. Everybody's good.
Yes.
Right? Everybody's good. That's why they're here. Then you have people who are really good.
Yes.
That like kind of rise to the top. And then you have these egos. People are trying to get promoted for the second, third time. They come at you, they look at you like you're a threat. I was kicked off my team. They said that, I had a force monitoring thing. I was heavy handed. It wasn't that. I come to find out down the line that, hey, I ruffled a couple people's feathers. It looked like me and two other guys could probably take over the team, and we had to get him out of here. Type of situation.
Yeah, there's a lot of politics. A lot of politics at play.
Yeah, so it's a lot. But you know what? What can you do? You have to learn how to get through that. And that's why I tell people, I say, NYP is a corporation. It's just mask and blue collar work. I mean, like once you learn how to navigate through the corporation, then you'll be fine.
And then fast forward, once you retired, you became an adjunct, or you're a professor, right?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Actually, I'm not. No, I'm not. So what I did was I would get invited to speak at colleges.
Oh, okay.
A close friend of mine, Adrian Goodwin. She's a professor at John.
I met her.
Yeah. I knew me and Adrian go back. Me and her husband.
Yeah.
Over 15 plus years, and I got invited to speak at her class. So we did it once or twice. And then I got invited to speak at other places as well. What I did was afterwards, I started a company called Video Extraction Inc. And I partnered with an attorney at the time who was my lodge brother. And what he realized, he says, Eric, we have these accidents or things that happen on video, but we have no one to obtain the video. So he says, I want to. He said, I never met a guy like you that you're actually doing this for the police department. I think there's something that could be done. And what happened was I wound up working a case for him I pulled some video for him, and he's like, "Oh, okay, we could shop this thing around." And then what happened was he wound up writing a manual, basically stating on the acquisition of video evidence, and he was able to put this in what is called the continuing legal education department for the this is the New York City Bar Association,
Okay.
and then they invited us for me and him to speak there. So it was a 2.5 hour presentation. I spoke in front of 100 attorneys on the acquisition of video evidence. Now, mind you, listen, I have an associate's degree.
Wow.
But yet I'm on stage in front of 100 attorneys with the PowerPoint that I created on the left and the right side of this hall, of this big forum that I was at, speaking on the acquisition of video evidence, my process for it, and I took them through a forensic process on how I go about it and why I do these things and what the rules are. So it really, like, I had one guy after the lecture who wanted me to work a homicide somewhere like in Singapore. I said, I wish I was that good, but I'm not that good. We actually wound up finding somebody for him. But because of what I left on the stage at that time, people really it was drawn to me. And I wasn't nowhere near the speaker I am now. Like I wasn't nowhere near polished as I was now, but I had to. But Carmen, my partner at the time, allowed me to get through that, and he actually showed me the consulting world, and and it's I have to publicly thank him for that. It didn't work out. It didn't work out, but it helped me. It gave me the confidence to do the stuff that I'm doing now.
One of the
Like,
reasons why I love Les Brown is
yeah,
because he never
big,
went to college whatsoever
definitely,
and became considered one of the top three best speakers of all time, right?
definitely. Oh, big
And
time, big
I
time.
met
Love
him. I
Les.
met him at a church, a big church in Queens. I don't remember the name of it. It's like maybe the Rock something. It's a big church in
Well, we have a couple of
Queens.
big churches out in Queens. We have a couple of
Yeah,
big
but
credit.
it was called the Rock something,
Yeah.
if that rings a bell. But I met him there, and like I know that he's spoken in front of all different types of educators and all different levels of business, and it just goes to show that your degree and your initials behind your name, it doesn't mean as much as your experience and your time on the job. You have to be so grateful for your experience with NYPD.
Well,
Go ahead.
I tell people all the time, monetize. Well, not as far as monetize, leverage your time,
Leverage.
your talent, and your resources. A lot of us, we come on the job and we have a really plain outlook on what this thing could be. I always wanted to be more than what I initially was. So that I can't always tell my baby brother, I can't teach ambition.
Right.
Ambition comes from within. I can't teach you
Right.
that. You have to get sick and tired of being who you are to grow. The average cop, they're going to come to work, they're going to do the bare minimum, and they're going to go home. Does that make them bad people? No. Does that make them bad cops? No. That's just what they want to do. I started seeing opportunity where, hey, I can morph into something else, and I can utilize this for something else as well. And coming out of Tyru, when you come out of Tyru, you come out, as a specialist. So I said, hey, I never saw no one in my unit do any type of video extraction work. It was always about installing cameras. You'll hear that, or even with like panic alarm systems, because I worked with some extremely talented individuals, but I never heard nobody as far as video extraction work. And I was like, you know what? I think this can work. And you know what? It worked for quite some time. And it was cool because then I got to lecture at the Brooklyn Bar Association,
That's
Bronx
cool.
Bar,
That's cool.
West, so the New York State Bar Association. We got invited to Chase. We have representatives from Chase that sponsored us in regards to that. And here I am. I'm just newly retired. I'm 33, 34 years old.
Chase is
And,
really hard to get video from, by the way.
so I mean, and the thing with Chase is that they have their own people who actually they're not allowing you in that bank because it's not
No,
in the bank. It's not in the
no.
bank. So like that's for one, and it's remote. And they'll actually they used to send me. They're like, hey, they mailed me out like the thumb drive. It was hilarious. Like, oh, this is what it is. Like they're not just giving it to you like that
No.
at that during that time. So, but like I had Chase like sponsor us because here we had these bar associations with all these attorneys, and you got these eyeballs on, right? Because all attorneys have to do some form of continual legal education to keep up their license, etc. So my partner knew that intimately. He was a civil rights attorney. He still is up in Harlem. He's an Italian guy, very charismatic, extremely smart. He was a lot older than me, but not just a business partner, but he was also a mentor in some ways. And I watched how he lived, and I said, "Hey, man, he's like a professional." And I started taking cues from that. And and I say this, publicly. I haven't spoken to Carmen in probably like a good 6 or 7 years because we had a small disagreement. But I have to say publicly, thank him, because it helped me reach another level, literally.
That's cool. Hey, I want to respect your time. I'm
No,
gonna.
no, we good. We good on time. We good on time. If you're good, I'm good on time.
I uh, I just have my last 5 questions for you.
Okay.
Um, what's your definition of a hero?
Somebody that does something that they'll someone that goes into a situation knowing that they're scared to do it. It's almost like the definition of courage, right? Someone that goes above and beyond, who's somewhat selfless, even though all the things are telling you to go the other way.
Courageous and selfless. When you're starting to get stressed, how do you relieve that stress? How do you save yourself from pressure when pressure's starting to build? Nowadays, what do you turn to?
I take long walks. So it's funny. I used to take walks with like I have my earbuds on, and I'll listen to podcasts with music. I don't even do that now. Like the first hour, it's all mental work. It's all deep work because I realized that I could solve most problems with a long walk. And by doing that, you could talk out loud. You could talk to yourself. Like there's no judgment zone. It's kind of just you, and you realize that you can work out these issues the longer you walk. So like those like I think my longest I did without listening to any music was probably like anywhere for like 8 miles. That,
Wow,
but I had a lot of stuff to work through, and I need to do that. So
that's a
that's what I
really
do
great
now.
answer. Do you have a park that you walk through, or is it just you walking around the neighborhood?
My neighborhood, man, my neighborhood has hills. So like I could go up the hill, come around, and I developed just like this pathway for me. Like, and I even like I have it stretched out further now. So I'm like, okay, because the bigger problem, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna take a longer walk today,
Did
and it
you
really helps
did
out a
you
lot.
know that ancient Greeks you would use walks like that to memorize talks?
So I heard as far I like Stoicism. So like I'm a big Ryan Holiday fan.
Uh huh.
He's big into So he took on Marcus Aurelius and
Yes.
things. They took walks, and but I
Yes.
didn't get it. But I necessarily got it from them. I just happened just to do it, and it worked for me. And then as I got into Stoicism, I heard that that's exactly what they used to do.
The longest I think I've ever ran, and this was a slow jog, was 6 miles. So I can't imagine taking an 8 mile walk.
So the walk is for a number of reasons. For one, it helps me with my gait. So, that's why I'm able to walk as smooth as I do now because I work on my core, I work on my gait, so I can be stabilized.
That's smart.
Because I, because I'm in a variety of different environments. When I got back to work, and I left this out. When I got back to work, when I got to Taru, I'm a whole new guy. I'm an amputee. So now when I got to my first team, which was Team 4 at the time, they were like, "Oh man, can we joke with him? Can we this with him?" Like, so I had to like set the tone early
Right.
on. Like, hey, we're
Right.
not gonna do this, man. I don't want to be baby.
Right.
I want to be out there with y'all. Like, we're not doing this at all. So, what I would do was, people ask me questions, and next, the jokes started coming along, and then one day, one guy said, "Hey, Eric, how do you click in on this?" I said, "Yeah, it's really easy." So what happened was when he turned around and then he turns back, I threw my leg at him, and he caught it. And he caught it. And he's like, "Ah, you asshole!" We were sitting there laughing about it, and it kind of like broke the glass. And I worked on my gait because I'm like, hey, I'm in rugged terrain. I'm in Washington. I cover the city of New York. I'm in Washington Heights. I'm in Queens. I'm in Staten Island. I have to walk up hills. I was on ladders. I'm climbing up to get video.
Hmm.
I wanted to do all of that. And it going back to work for those 5 years and in practicing that helped me out a ton with my confidence. And I needed to do that at the time. And walking was attributed to that.
What's your greatest power, your greatest strength?
Um, I could connect with people for whatever they so it's to the point where people could tell me that I meet people and people
And they
tell
start
me
telling you your whole life, right?
yeah it's like it's funny and
I
I'm
can
like
see
and
that. I can see
I
that.
don't care where I go like I'm in Istanbul I'm talking to somebody like they guys he's just laying it on me and I just gave him and I like to give good advice I love to give good advice I got friends of mine that call me for a variety of different reasons and they ask me my take on it. I like to strategize. I'm a chess player as well, and
We
I
gotta
look at
play. We
yeah,
gotta
we got
play.
to play, man. And I definitely I love strategy. I love to think things through. And that's also by training as far as what I've done and how I was taught as a detective, to think the case all the way through to the end, those type of things. And I incorporate all that. But I connect with people. I connect with people at a real deep level. I don't judge people at all. I've seen it all. I've seen it. I've seen this thing kind of twice already. So I'm not surprised when you tell me something or I don't bat an eye to it. My new role now is I'm the director of human resources and compliance for a security firm now. And my line is humans are going to be human, and I expect them to be human. So when you come, so when you come to my office and you tell me your problems and your woes, there's no, I get it because
Yep.
I have to meet people where they are, and I usually do. I meet people where they are. I'm not going to dumb myself down for you, but I'll meet you where you are. There is no judgment zone.
I love that. And my last question for you is: if you had a comic book superpower, what would it be and why?
Ooh, so you know what's funny? I gave a speech about this. I said I compared myself to X-Men, because throughout a certain part of the year, I could cover up. You don't know my superpower, me being an amputee. But I never like it'll be like Wolverine
Uh
because
huh.
you don't know who Wolverine is until the claws come out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You just don't know it. Or I forgot the name of the other one that the female that changes like she blends in. She can change to anybody. Like I forgot her name. She's
I
blue.
could, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about, right?
I could see her too. I
So
can't believe.
and it's not it's mostly because of her way of blending in. I always feel that I'm able to blend in. For a good portion of time. Like you don't know, no one. I don't have a cop look. Like no one
Yep,
knows. My daughter wasn't born when I was a cop.
yep.
My daughter when I retired, she was 8 months, so I had to put pictures in my place. Hey, this is what your dad used to do. That's the
Yeah,
only thing she know me as being flexible and picking up from school. So she didn't know I did all this stuff. So for me, it's like I'm able to hide a good portion out the year. Then springtime comes like now, and I walk outside with a pair of shorts on, and people like, oh man, I didn't know. And my friend's sister didn't know. I'm like, well, shit, you knew me for years. I never looked down because I hide in plain sight.
yeah. That's
So
cool.
I always equated to my life because most of my prosthetics they're all usually X-Men, or there's some type of old school cartoon. I had Thundercats. I
That's
have right
cool.
now. Yeah, right now I have Panthro on the front. For those, this is age appropriate, obviously.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I mean, and I like these, and I had these things because people would stare at me for a while. I didn't go to the gym and wear shorts because of the stares. But then I owned it. I started taking spin classes. I'm in the front of the spin class, and then afterwards, I would get people pulling me to the side saying, "Hey, I wanted to quit, but I saw you in the front." And I'm like, "Damn, this is embarrassing. He's in the front, and I want to quit." And this is a conversation I would have, and like intimate conversations. It's like, "Man, I saw you kicking ass for 55 minutes." I'm like, "Nah, I can't get off the bike and let him beat me." And it was cool. So I always compete with people like in the gym because it gets me going to say, hey, if I'm able to do this, then what's your excuse then? So that's how I look at it.
We're gonna leave it right there. I appreciate you so much, brother. Don't hang up. Just hang on a
No,
minute.
no problem. No, no